Hello, I'm Cathy Petersen, a volunteer with the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. You're watching Business Connection, a program produced by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. And the Chamber is committed to finding business solutions by collaborating with regional business leaders on key issues. Our guest today, Phil Parker, President and CEO of the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce, and Eric Cluxton, who is a part of the Chamber's Strategic Planning Committee. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Every 3 years, the Dayton Chamber undergoes a rigorous process in developing a new strategic plan. It's a very thoughtful process as well. The latest plan emphasized 4 key strategic priorities for 2014 through 2016. They are business retention and growth, intellectual capital expansion, business environment advocacy, and operational excellence. Now, who from the region worked on developing the plan? And Eric, I'll start with you.
Yeah, glad to. As I'm currently the 2014 board chair, and part of that capacity was chair-elect. And in that regard, I was the chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. And an exec committee meeting in the springtime, we talked about the need to go through the process again and asked for volunteers. The following week, we had our board meeting and asked for volunteers. And by the end of that second meeting, we had 26 different active participants that went through the process. Some names, if you would like some names of who was involved in that. Not only some tremendous senior staff people from the chamber, but also Roy Chu, who was the immediate past chair. Roy's with President Kettering Medical Center. So don't forget some folks here. Ron Budzik, consulting director and longtime business executive. Vince Corrado with Shook Construction. Amy Luttrell with Goodwill Easter Seals, Dan McCabe with CareSource. We've got Deb Norris with Sinclair Community College. Let's see, a couple others. Honorable Bob Taft, he was very much an active participant. Mark Williams with Elements Volunteers, and Niels Winther with CEO of Think Patented. So there's a variety. I didn't want to run through all 26, but there's just a sprinkling of very, very seasoned, well-rounded and very diverse type of input from those particular members. Absolutely. Important leaders in our community that obviously have some important input. Now, how long does the process take? We started the meetings officially in April of this year. We met then monthly through the summer as well. And we finalized with a presentation to exec committee in August. And then we made some minor changes to that, and then presented to the board for final adoption in September, October. I forget the exact time. August. I'm sorry. What's the same month? Okay, August. And what we do is we take the prior 3-year strategic plan as kind of a guide and a template, and it doesn't mean that's going to be the same wording, the same verbiage, the same issues every 3 years. And it wasn't this case as well. We made some dramatic changes to it, which was, I think, which was great because of the input and the changes in today's marketplace. Because we've seen our environment really transform very much so. In the past couple of years, past decade even.
Well, and more important, I mean, you yourself, you've been involved a lot on workforce and some of the things that's happening in the community. And this was an area where we have always had some input and some ideas about workforce, because that's always been a need, but we really put a lot of emphasis on it on this particular plan. Yeah.
That's fantastic, and we'll get more into that, absolutely. The plan for 2014-2016 expresses concern about how the federal Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, we keep hearing so much about that, will affect business and hiring. Now, what does the Chamber hope to accomplish in this area over the next 3 years?
Well, you know, it's been very tumultuous these last 18 months or so as we're starting to get closer to some of these triggering dates of the Affordable Care Act. And now that we're getting into 2014, people are still asking us, how is my business going to be affected? How am I going to be affected as an employee or even my family with this Health Care Act? So I think we still have a very active mission in providing education to our business employers, to people where we can say, here's what we think is some of the issues that you need to be concerned about, and perhaps even some solutions. Second, we do provide some solutions as a chamber. We have some benefit programs that are very, very good, and we try to provide that especially to the small business community. So we are still actively engaged in this. I still think 2014 is going to be one that the answers are not all there yet. I think there's probably going to be some changes in 2015 and 16. So this is a piece of legislation. It's groundbreaking. It's so large. It's so complex that we're going to actually see a lot more change over the next year or two. So we have to be engaged in that.
Absolutely, and the Chamber is such an outstanding resource, as you mentioned, for businesses of all sizes. And I know that we've already had 2 programs of Business Connection related to the Affordable Care Act. So I'm sure that we may have more.
We may have more.
Because it is such an important topic.
That's right.
Now, certainly for the past several years, many in the community have been working to close the skills gap. You know, we hear that phrase quite a bit. Now, the strategic plan endorses the Learn to Earn initiative. We've heard a lot about that as well. Why is this important to the Chamber?
Me or Eric?
I'll start.
Eric? Okay, sure.
Yes.
You used the term earlier that the Chamber represents businesses, and that's so true. That's our thought process. And I sometimes use the term that we work for businesses, and truly. And based on their membership and their input and working with those particular companies, it's been determined that they're, for the future success of these businesses in a variety of different industries, it is development, retraining of employees, identifying future needs of that skill set, as well as then providing outlets and outreach programs for students and or the, I don't want to say entry level, but the early level, if you will, employee, so they can continue to learn and grow throughout their careers.
Yeah. You know, Cathy, we've been looking at these issues of workforce for a long time, and certainly we have this Learn to Earn initiative, which, as you said, we support. A lot of the folks are really rallying behind this. We think it's a great idea of trying to position ourselves with educated, competent workers out there, and that's what this is all about. We understand that if you have a job, you're going to have a better quality of life. I mean, it's just that simple. It's going to protect our employers. We're going to make sure that the businesses thrive and excel. But you're going to have a certain degree of education, whether that be a high school diploma, a certification after high school, a degree or something. We just want to make sure that we are crossing all the T's and dotting the I's with the provider community that provides education to make sure that we are touching the lives of people out there, which in turn we know at some point in time will be a benefit to employers where they're out there getting those very competent employees. That's what drives business. You know, yes, capital dollars, yes, location, there's a lot of things. There's nothing more important than people in a business.
Yes, and starting with our children,
right.
You know, getting them ready to learn so they can earn.
That's
when they're
right.
ready, you know, graduating from
Exactly
college or
right.
a trade school. I mean, it's just so important. And we talk about the brain drain too. You know, we lose so many of our talented young people when, you know, we need to be keeping them here because
Right.
there are jobs here.
That's right.
We just got to get that all connected.
Yeah, Cathy, in the strategic planning committee that was developed, the name I didn't mention to you, I don't think, was Tom Lasley.
Yes.
You know, from University of Dayton. And Tom has been instrumental and very active with the Learn to Earn program. So we spent a lot of time in these sessions talking about, you know, workforce development, Learn to Earn. I think I would conclude we probably spent more time on that subject matter with workforce development.
Probably so. And Tom did a great job of being an advocate to help make sure that we understood the importance of it.
Yeah, he did.
Absolutely. And it's businesses and it's organizations and people are really buying into it, believing in it.
That's right.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
Now, on another topic, transportation and infrastructure is an area that the Chamber has been active with for many years. Besides the continued work on Interstates 75 and 70, as well as US 35 and other key roads, what additional funding or project will the Chamber champion over the next several years? And Eric, do you want to start?
Gladly. We've identified 10 different projects to the totaling of $161 million in this effort. And number one priority is with the City of Union and the logistics site that's being built, 1.8 million square feet, and the infrastructure leading around that. And that would be what is called Project Walnut. Maybe you've heard that term in the newspaper, what have you. But that's number one priority.
It is.
And there's I-70 widening in Clark County, phase 2 of that. I'll just, if it's all right, I'll keep going down the list.
Sure.
I don't forget any. Widening of 35 going eastbound past
From Steve Wayland
Boulevard to
675.
675. Thank you. Kaufman Avenue, which is State Route 44, right by Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's another Wright-Patterson Air Force Base initiative, which would be the Springfield Street reconstruction to connect to Wright-Pat. The Austin Road interchange widening. Even though Austin Road is open and has been for several years now, there's a need for additional turn lane to reduce some of the congestion
We're already
going
at
southbound.
capacity or past capacity on that interchange.
Hard to believe.
It is, that's right.
So the thought and concept would be a right turn lane going south on 741, so this continuous, if you will, right turn lane.
Yes.
Very, very important. State Route 73 and 71 interchange reconstruction on the highway. I-675 Wilmington Pike interchange, I-675 in Grange Hall. Again, you got to think these are leading up to Fairborn and into the
That's right,
Wright-Pat
into that
congestion
Green County area. That's
Correct.
right.
And then the final number that we've identified is, again, right near along the Wright-Pat as the Colonel Glenn Highway Research Corridor upgrade. Yes. So those are the 10 with a common theme of congestion, reduction of, and or the need for traffic flow to get to certain destinations.
Mm-hmm. It's been nice to see so many organizations working together, especially around the I-75 reconstruction. I can see that from my window
I bet you can.
every day, and
Yes.
it truly is a transformation. And everybody was so worried about the congestion, and I tell you what, it's still very easy to get around it.
It hasn't been bad. Now, I know that maybe a little bit of pain,
Sure.
okay? But you know what? When that project is finally done, it will be remarkable because it really has made that improved area, that corridor downtown. And the old, remember we referred to it as Malfunction Junction?
Yes.
That has been softened and improved greatly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a very big project in our last go-around of our last Big Ten from our first 10-year process on this. We're into the second 10-year process. We don't quite have $1 billion on our plan because that was about, of all the work we did in the last 10 years was about $1 billion worth. This is a little bit more modest, but we still have transportation needs in this community that we must be advocates for.
Absolutely. And leading into that, the Chamber has worked to place volunteers and staffers in positions of influence among Columbus decision makers. Public Policy Vice President Chris Kirshner serves with the Ohio Transportation Review Advisory Council. What other committees and councils has the Chamber been able to place local volunteers?
Well, we've been very much engaged not only locally about making sure that folks are on the EDGE program locally from Montgomery County, that they're engaged in some of the Greene County projects. They're very highly engaged in Wright-Patterson. You mentioned that Chris is on TRAC, which is a transportation committee that's out of the ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation. I serve on a couple of boards for the governor for workforce transformation, for the internship program with education, the higher education units. So, I mean, we're getting more and more folks that are saying, please, I want to be engaged and help us get representatives from the local community. Rob Conley from Henny Penny, we were just able to get him engaged in some of the arts projects and some of the review from a state level of a capital improvement budget that might help us for the arts here in the community. So we continue to get business executives more engaged in some of those public policy decision-making opportunities for the state and for the local community.
And it's so important because we really do have so much going on. You mentioned arts, you mentioned, just economic development. There's a lot happening here and people are taking notice.
Absolutely
so
right.
We like that.
You bet.
It's wonderful too to have business leaders that raise their hand and say they're willing to help participate, or what can I do to help the chamber in the valley. So that's really nice.
And it's so important. We've seen in other communities across the country that a lot of these initiatives are led by businesses.
That's right, and should be.
Yes.
No offense to all the great folks that work in any number of institutions of government or whatever, but you really need to drill down to the users, to the people that are really understanding what are the needs of either business or their communities, which would include even those local elected officials that understand their neighborhoods and communities. So I think it's awfully important that you get people the people involved in this decision-making process.
Definitely. Now, Phil, how many paid professional staff does the Chamber employ?
We actually have 27 in our downtown location, but we also have 4 out at the airport. A lot of people don't remember that we are the one that has a partnership with the City of Dayton with the Business Traveler Center out there. So we have part-time employees that work out there. So we're a pretty active, and as chambers go, a pretty large chamber. Membership-wise, one of the top 25 largest, probably staff-wise, one of the top 25 largest in the country. And you know, we have a fair diverse group of staff. We don't do everything. We collaborate with a number of organizations with other initiatives in town, but it is one of the things that you know, we still try to stay focused on what can we do for business, and if we can continue to be focused on those priorities, then hopefully we can use our resources for that.
Sure, and I love the improvements that are being made at the airport, you know, already,
Oh,
because
absolutely.
it's such a gateway, you know, for people who are visiting our community, and we love that first impression, so
bet.
that's always a good thing. Now, do you see expansion for the Chamber?
Well, certainly, you know, I don't want to sit here and say that, you know, we got plans to expand staff, but our chamber has to ebb and flow. We have to listen to the needs of the business community, and sometimes, and that's why a strategic plan is good. We try to estimate, we try to guess on what we think that the needs are, but our volunteers will be the first to tell you that any good plan has to be a living document. It has to be able to ebb and flow, because we may find something that doesn't work anymore, and we may say that is not where we want to put our attention. We're going to put it to something else. Certainly the Affordable Care Act probably was not on our radar screen 4 or 5 years ago, and all of a sudden in the last 18 months, maybe even 2 years, it really has. So things like that are going to happen. And I don't know if that means additional staff, but I certainly think it means additional responsibility and opportunity for the chamber, the business community, our volunteers, our employees to get engaged in any number of issues. And that includes, and let me say this again, it includes collaborating with others. It's about partnering with others. It's not about the chamber having to be responsible for everything. In today's leadership place, that's not how it works. It's about a shared leadership with others. You just need to make sure that you're working well and that you have a good relationship and that you're covering the bases.
Absolutely. Now, how can members and really community members take a look at the strategic plan?
Well,
Several
okay,
widely
sure.
used ads.
Oh, yeah.
On the website
Yep.
at the Dayton Chamber. There are also printed materials, printed copies, if they like, but I'd suggest the website would be first and foremost.
Yes,
And,
that's the easiest.
That's the easiest.
You bet.
And it would, and as time goes by, if there's need to change that during the 3-year period, we will change the strategic plan. Will we not? I mean,
That's right.
Depending on the importance or what's happening as far as a forecast or what we're seeing as reality.
Because we know things change.
That's right. We, you know, we have said for many years to businesses when we counsel them, you need to have a business plan, and in some cases maybe even a strategic plan, a longer term plan. And so we want to walk the walk. So we write a 3-year plan that Eric described, but every year we write a 1-year business plan that tries to take a piece of that 3-year plan and say, well, what are we going to try to accomplish this year? Now, in my years at the chamber, I'll be honest with you, there have been times when we went back to the board and said, here's what we think we want to do, and maybe the board said, well, what about this, or maybe you should do this, or that's no longer relevant, perhaps now you should be doing this. And maybe it wasn't even in the plan, but this is too important for you not to focus on. So we do that, and I think it's the right thing to do. But I will tell you, as the head of the staff at the chamber, I really like the idea of having a plan, having a roadmap of what we're supposed to try to do each and every single day. It really guides us to really hopefully maximizing the resources that our members and our community gives us. So it's something that I think that we live by, but again, it has to be a living, breathing document, because it can't be so sterile that you can't evolve and change. Right. It needs to. We're a business like anybody else.
Right. Yes. Any other key points in the strategic plan that you'd like to highlight?
Not so much as far as the content, but just the process.
Yes.
I think that was so smooth. You know, your staff was tremendous in this project, but continues to be. And I think that's why we had great participation of volunteers, because it's time out of their work schedules and their personal lives And the same time with the board meetings, we have active participation and well-attended board meetings, and so it runs well. It's fun to be involved, and it's great to see the people who do show up and actively participate.
Yes, and are truly making a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Cathy, you asked early on, you talked about the areas that the strategic plan talks about. One of the mistakes that I think folks make when they write a plan is they try to put too much into it. Mm-hmm. They try to say, well, these are my 12 priorities, or these are my 12 strategic ideas, or whatever. And if you're not careful, you wake up one day and you didn't get any of them done because you're just across the board. We've tried to highlight 4 specific areas: business, retention, and expansion. Those businesses that have made a commitment to our community that are here, how do we help them to be successful? This intellectual capital piece, this worker and educated worker and competent worker, we think it's important. The area of advocacy, how do we best try to portray the needs of the business community to the elected officials, both local, state, and federal. And then fourth, we even look internally. That excellence of an organization, that operational excellence. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do we make sure that we are truly trying to be the very best and most competent chamber that we can possibly be? So we're not all things to all people. We're not trying to do 12 strategic things. We're trying to hone ourselves into just a few priorities and try to do them well.
Yes, very well said.
Yeah, thanks.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for appearing today on Business Connection.
All right, Cathy, thank you.
And thank you so much for joining us. And now stay tuned for a message from the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce.
If we all remember this past fall's federal government shutdown, then we may need to prepare for what lies ahead over the next few weeks. We hope it's not deja vu all over again, but we must start to reconsider, while cooler heads prevail, the next steps our nation should take in deciding the fate of a looming debt ceiling and additional federal deficits. Without a doubt, no politician, whether Democrat or Republican, believes the economy is as robust as it should be after this past Great Recession. Sure, the stock market has risen, tipping the scales at new highs, and property values seem to be returning. But how about jobs? Are enough of our family and neighbors in good jobs, or are we still just plodding along? Some of us feel the greatest long-term threat to our economy and nation is this uncontrollable urge in Washington to spend more than it takes in, this addiction to spending. Perhaps it's time we use this discussion of deficits and debt ceilings to actually produce more meaningful dialogue on the long-range economic health of our nation, if not for our own sakes, then that of our children and our children's children. Now should be a time when we decide the hard questions going forward on a sustainable government model that lowers debt and starts to strengthen our economy with surpluses rather than deficits, and more jobs, not threats of more economic woes. Every state in the union except Vermont is required to balance its budget. We learn to do that in our businesses and in our homes. So why not at a federal level? Perhaps now would be a good time to discuss a constitutional amendment that would curb this uncontrollable addiction we suffer from inside the Beltway. I, for one, am ready for some real political courage. Courage to make decisions that will strengthen our economy rather than hold us hostage or shut us down again.